All right. So, chapter 11. Great results come from asking better questions. Remember, I always say this. Sometimes people don't succeed, or sometimes people don't improve because they ask the wrong questions. They're not asking good questions. Ask intelligent questions and ask questions that will actually give you the answers that you actually need. Right? Right? Great results come from asking better, focusing questions. All right, for instance, let me give you an example of a terrible question. And I had to tell, when was it, last year? I had to tell the young, was it a young girl or a young man? I don't remember. One of them, because we have a lot of conversations. I had to tell them that, listen, that is a terrible question. That's a terrible question, especially for you to be asking yourself that question, right? Because he asked himself, or no, or she or him asked himself, man, why am I so stupid? I said, excuse me? Never ever ask yourself that question. Ever. Don't bastardize yourself like that. And don't embarrass yourself like that in front of other people. And he thought it was a joke, or she thought it was a joke. I don't remember how the scene set up. Was it him or I don't remember. Anyhow, it's one of them. It had to be a male or female. So I said, that is a terrible, terrible question. I think it was a man. Right? Because that question basically says, pardon me. That question basically is saying that you are stupid. It's a terrible question. When you ask a question, why am I so stupid? You're basically setting up the fact that, okay, I am resolved in saying that I am stupid. So now I'm asking why. Don't ask those type of questions. Ask questions that are impactful and that will help you to focus on the actual problem. That's the type of questions you need to ask. People don't stop asking stupid, and you have to be aware of your stupid questions. Some people say, oh, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Not true. If the question does not solve anything or doesn't make anything better, it is a stupid question. You're going to ask yourself, why am I so stupid? That's a terrible question. Terrible. Because if you are going to admit it and actually be of the resolve that you're stupid, it makes no sense. You ask, why bother ask why? If you are, you are. If you're going to say that you are stupid, then we can't, you can't go any further than that. Right? So no, some questions are done. Okay. Now ask. This is a good example of a question that you should ask. What's the one thing I can do such that everything else will be easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do that if I do it, in other words, what is my main domino? That's what you're asking. What is my domino? Right? What is my domino? Basically, that's what you're asking. Okay? That question there, it clarifies. Let me bring this closer so I don't feel like I have to shout. Doo-doo. I don't need that. Doo. Yeah. That question there, it clarifies priorities and it directs your energy to high leverage action. Okay? What's the one thing I can do such that everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Right? Good. So here are some steps for you to do. You write down your focusing question daily. Write it down every day. This morning, you get up. What's the one thing that I can do today? Maybe it is continuing what you started yesterday. Maybe that's what it is. But you're not going to know until you write it down or until you figure it out for yourself. Don't hopscotch from thing to thing. Maybe it is actually completing the task. Right? Good. And evaluate all decisions through that lens. In other words, every decision that you make when it comes on to your next tasks, evaluate it and say, is this the domino that should be moving? Is this the task that I should be doing? That's what you need to do, right? And you eliminate tasks that are not supporting your one thing. You have to decide what that one thing is from before. That was your homework. Good. Right. Now, always remember this. The quality of your questions, right? They determine the quality of your results. These are facts. The quality of your questions determine the quality of your results. So a lot of how questions are good quality questions. Don't forget this. A lot of how questions are good quality questions. All right. Oh, look, Misty, there are 5 people here. So guys, after I do this slide, we're going to do the quiz on the back. So don't forget this. A lot of how questions are good quality. In other words, how can I get up the hill? How can I move from 60% successful to 100% successful? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to break up my 100% task into smaller steps? How? Those usually are excellent quality questions, right? Terrible questions would be, why was I only able to do 60%? Or why can't I do more than 60%? That's a terrible question. Because it's not true. Okay, it may not be true. Okay, how usually are good questions because it seeks solution. Any type of question that seek a solution usually is a high quality question. Okay, sometimes why questions can be good solution because sometimes why is getting to the root of the problem, right? So sometimes you have to start there. Don't forget that though, right? So clarity from questions simplifies complexity. Yeah. The clarity from the question, it simplifies the complexity. It's not going to be as difficult as you think it's going to be. It's not going to be as difficult as you think if you ask better questions, right? So you avoid distractions as well by keeping the one thing central, keeping the one thing on your mind, right? Okay, went back down to 4.